Tonight at 6, tragedy in Texas. A small community in pain.
I mean, what can we do? Everybody's just heartbroken.
After a gunman opens fire inside an elementary school.
We know that 19 children have lost their lives.
Tonight, questions remain in the deadliest school shooting in the state's history. As the investigation intensifies, Texans come together to wrap their arms around a community in mourning.
I don't know what to tell them. Just, it's like, we always say, hug your kids every day and every morning when they go to school.
You're watching NBC5 News at 6.
Good evening and thank you for joining us on this special hour-long edition of NBC5 News at 6. I'm Brittany Johnson.
And I'm Brian Curtis in Uvalde, where our community is coming together in the wake of tragedy.
Tonight, we are remembering the victims who lost their lives, 19 children, at least 5 of whom were 4th graders. And here are just some of their faces. Isaiah Garcia, Xavier Lopez, Amari Jo Garza, Annabelle Rodriguez. Those children, along with 2 teachers, Eva Morales and Irma Garcia, who relatives say died trying to protect their students. They were all just days away from the end of the school year.
And tonight we are learning more about the events that unfolded yesterday. Governor Greg Abbott says an 18-year-old gunman shot his grandmother in the face. And when she called police, he fled. He later crashed his pickup truck near Robb Elementary and ran inside. He then entered a classroom and began shooting.
Consolidated ISD officers, police, sheriffs, and DPS officers converged on that classroom, and a Border Patrol officer killed the gunman.
3 officers were injured and remain hospitalized in good condition. Sources tell NBC News. So far, there is no known motive behind the shooting. I am standing just outside Robb Elementary, which is at the end of the street here behind me. We're being kept at a distance here while the investigation continues, which of course is understandable. But you can see that we're in the middle of what would otherwise be a normally quiet neighborhood, a neighborhood that is now the focus of this heartbroken community, where almost everyone has been touched in some way by this tragedy. My colleague Maria Guerrero is here with me in Uvalde. She's been talking with people about how life in this town was shattered a little more than 24 hours ago. Maria, I know you actually spoke to one of the students who was in that school.
Just 10 years old, this child that you're about to hear from. Brian, keep in mind that this all happened just 2 days before the end of the school year. You know, this is when all schedules tend to be very relaxed. In fact, a lot of students were outside playing with her parents' permission. One student, just 10 years old, recounted the moment she knew something wasn't right.
And we heard 2 bangs. Our teacher said that they were fireworks and kids were just messing around. And we didn't think that, and we knew they weren't fireworks because we wouldn't go in lockdown for that.
Clutching a new teddy bear given to her by counselors at the Civic Center today, 4th grader Aurelia Santos says her class got to go to recess earlier than normal Tuesday morning. So they were outside when the first shots rang out inside Robb Elementary School. She says her classmates started panicking when a police officer told them there was an active shooter on campus. They were rushed to the Civic Center on buses where she reunited with her mother, who's a nurse, and her father, who works in San Antonio.
She was supposed to be in that class, and she has 3 cousins who were supposed to be in their class, and they didn't go to school.
And I didn't know who was her or dead, and then we started looking around on Facebook, and then I realized that all the people I knew were dead now.
In case you did not hear, that 10-year-old little girl, she says all the people she knows are now dead. Aurelia's parents told us something that other people around here in Uvalde have told us throughout the day, that today They feel guilty that they have this sense of relief that their little girl came home last night knowing that so many friends and former colleagues lost their little ones. Back to you.
Thank you, Maria. The question remains, why did this happen? We don't know the shooter's motive, and we may never know. Governor Abbott said today that he asked city leaders and members of law enforcement in Uvalde what the problem is. He said their answer was straightforward and emphatic.
We have a problem with mental health illness in this community. And then they elaborated on the magnitude of the mental health challenges that they are facing in the community and the need for more mental health support in this region.
The governor went on to say that he knows that the mental and emotional wounds will last far longer than the physical wounds, adding that everyone in this community will be given access to the help they need for as long as they need it. We want to bring in Telemundo 39's Martha Minjares now. Martha, I know you spoke with the suspect's grandfather.
That is correct, Ryan. Actually, I want to start with what the governor said earlier today. He said that the suspect actually posted in social media that he wanted to shoot his grandmother, and he actually shot her. She's in a hospital in San Antonio. Earlier today, we were able to talk to the suspect's grandfather.
Rolando Reyes was at the scene this morning, and we were able to talk to him briefly. He told his wife, Cecilia Gonzalez, had a gunshot wound to the right side of the face and that she was getting ready to go to surgery. We asked Reyes if he knew his grandson's intentions or if he even knew he owned any guns.
I don't know. I speak to him daily, but
Reyes said that he usually goes to work at 5 in the morning and comes back home really late. However, he spoke to his grandson daily, but insisted he did not know anything, and he was just very surprised and distraught when he heard the news yesterday.
Officials have also said that the suspect also posted that he wanted to shoot an elementary school, and he did this like 15 minutes before everything happened. On the other hand, Meta officials, these are the owners of Facebook and Instagram, have mentioned that those conversations, those posts were done in a private conversation. This is the information that I have live in Uvalde. I'm Martha Minjares. Back to you.
Thank you, Martha. Well, along with a deep sense of loss here, there is another sentiment that seems universal, and I think it was summed up by our partners at the Dallas Morning News. The headline in the paper today was one word. It just said, again. Brittany, sadly, we have been here before. I'll send it back to you.
Here before, and hearts are broken all over once again. Brian, we'll check in with you soon. Thank you. We're also gathering more information tonight about the weapons that the gunman purchased and what law enforcement has now discovered about his background. Our senior investigative reporter Scott Friedman is here to answer some of our questions. We certainly have a lot of them, Scott, but let's start with those weapons that were involved. What do you know?
Yeah, Brittany, here's the timeline on the guns. We know that the gunman turned 18 on May 16th, and according to the Texas Department of Public Safety, the next day, May 17th, he purchased a first AR-15 style rifle. The following day, they say he bought 375 rounds of ammunition. And then on May 20th, authorities say he bought a second AR-15 type rifle. Texas state officials briefed on the investigation say both guns were purchased from the same local gun shop. Now, that's interesting because in border states, including Texas, gun dealers are supposed to send the ATF a multiple sale report if they sell more than one semi-automatic rifle to the same person within 5 consecutive business days. The ATF's Houston office declined to comment today on whether the agency received a multiple sale report when the suspect purchased the second rifle. But in a practical sense, law enforcement officials tell us it would be impossible to follow up on all of those reports. Multiple sales happen virtually every day in Texas, and that reporting law was mostly designed to prevent the flow of large numbers of rifles to Mexico, where they can end up in the hands of the cartels. Brittany?
Well, but still, Scott, talk about both of those rifles. Were both of those rifles used in the shooting?
No, police said today the shooter dropped one of the rifles on the ground after crashing his car near the school. He carried the other into the building, and an ATF official says he had at least 30 magazines with him when he entered that building.
Just still so much to take in, Scott. What do we know about the suspect's record? I mean, did he have any past issues with police?
There are some conflicting reports tonight about whether or not he had a juvenile record. 2 law enforcement officials said today so far they have not found any records of past arrests, and they said there's no indication that he ever spent any time in a mental health facility. Officials have described him as a high school dropout, and they're still investigating what motivated to attack his grandmother and then that school.
Any idea, though, why he may have chosen that school, Scott?
Law enforcement officials are still investigating whether there's any connection, but they said they've not found any obvious connection so far. We have seen public records that suggest his grandmother is a licensed teacher's aide, but the Uvalde School District did not immediately respond to questions today about whether she ever worked for the district.
All right, thank you, Scott. Well, as Governor Abbott provided an update on the shooting today, he was interrupted by Beto O'Rourke, who is running against Abbott this fall.
Stop the next shooting is right now, and you are doing nothing.
No,
you're offering us nothing.
You
said this is not predictable. This is totally predictable when you choose.
Sir, you're out of line.
O'Rourke called out the governor, saying he has done nothing after each mass shooting in Texas, including in O'Rourke's hometown of El Paso.
Right after Santa Fe High School was the time to stop the next shooting. Right after El Paso was the time to stop the next shooting. Right after Midland Odessa was the time to stop the next shooting. And in each case, we say this isn't the time. Now is the time, like literally right now.
O'Rourke went on to say he believes another incident like this will happen unless we change course. Governor Abbott said right now is not the time for this, and politicians should set aside their agendas and focus on the victims' families. Today, President Biden confirmed he and the First Lady will come to Texas, but they have not said when that trip is going to happen. For now, I'll send it back to you, Brittany.
All right, Brian, thank you. And of course, we will update you all on air and online as soon as we find out. Our coverage continues after the break. We'll have the discussions that are happening right now to protect North Texas schools in the wake of the tragedy in Uvalde. Tonight, the changes we could be seeing. Welcome back. We continue our coverage of the Texas school shooting in Uvalde, and Brian is live in Uvalde tonight. Brian, you spent much of the afternoon there. Can you share what you've seen so far?
Yeah, just a lot of sadness, Brittany, and people looking for answers that may never come. And you just can't help but wonder how a lot of people here, especially the parents, will ever find a path forward after such a heinous attack. But of course, we'll be here watching to see what happens in this community as they pull together. Schools all across North Texas, they are stepping up security amid the tragedy here in Uvalde. Many are reporting more patrolling and overall more security staff. Tonight we're taking a look at how one of North Texas's largest school districts is responding. Lily Zhang is live in Fort Worth for us with that part of the story. Lily?
Yeah, Brian, a spokesperson for Fort Worth ISD says they are working closely with the Fort Worth Police Department, which has pledged to support the district. All of this as emotions from parents are running high.
We haven't talked to her yet.
Fort Worth ISD parent Ken Kuhl is used to speaking on school issues as an advocate, but finds himself today at a loss for words.
I think the thing that overwhelms me is that it's such a complicated problem and an important problem. And for whatever reason, nobody seems to be trying to tackle it.
Kuhl's daughter is about the same age as many of the school children killed Tuesday in Uvalde. The tragedy prompting many school districts in North Texas to up security this week in Fort Worth.
It's hard to find the words to explain just how we feel at the Fort Worth Police Department.
Police Chief Neil Noakes said Wednesday their neighborhood police officers have been redirected to the district schools. The department has also increased patrol presence around schools as well.
We're working with our Fusion Center and our Real-Time Crime Center to monitor any potential threats that could occur. We've got some of our volunteers that are out being extra eyes and ears on all of our campuses as well.
Fort Worth ISD parent Alexander Montalvo says he discussed a school shooting with his children Wednesday over the phone while traveling for work.
My youngest in 4th grade, when she heard this, her immediate response is, I'm scared. I don't know if I want to go to school.
Parents like Kuhl say they are confident his child is safe, but something needs to be done.
I'm scared that the solution is far away, I guess. And I'm there, I'm ready to advocate, but there's no easy answers.
Now, Chief Noakes today also recognized that this time of year, the end of the school year, is typically filled with special events, celebrations. So he has authorized personnel to attend school events in uniform, even when they are off duty. Reporting live in Fort Worth, Lily Zhang, NBC5.
Thank you, Lily. And we will have much more coverage tonight, including reaction that is still pouring in, including from Dallas Cowboys star Dak Prescott. For now, Brittany, I'll send it back to you in the studio.
The biggest names in the sports world are sharing their thoughts in the aftermath of the Uvalde school shooting, including Dak Prescott. Here's what the Cowboys quarterback had to say about the tragedy today.
We're talking about children. We're talking about the future. I mean, I don't have kids and can't imagine having to send my kid to school with that anxiety, with that. Honestly, it makes me fearful to have children, and that's not right. That's sad.
It's heartbreaking. Prescott and his charitable foundation are hosting a town hall in Arlington this evening, and they'll have leaders and experts in law enforcement, education, and mental health. And they will talk about how to work together to improve the community. So what now? How do we prevent this from happening again? Those are the questions we ask seemingly every time there's a school shooting, and then nothing changes. It happens again and again. Here we are asking why. Here's Noel Walker.
Here we are again, another school shooting. I'm usually the one doing the kind of stories to give you hope, but today I don't have answers. Like many of you, I just have questions.
What are we doing? Just days after a shooter walked into a grocery store to gun down African American patrons, we have another Sandy Hook on our hands.
Sandy Hook, 20 children and 6 staff members killed. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, 17 students and staff. Columbine, 13 dead. And that's just to name a few. We have normalized school names as shorthand for a way to talk about mass shootings. Like Santa Fe, another Texas school where 8 students and 2 teachers were shot to death in 2018.
I never thought this would happen in our school. You know, a school is a place that you feel safe in and that you always think, like, that's never gonna happen to me.
Until it does. This week, it's Robb Elementary in Uvalde. Like a heart-wrenching Groundhog Day, different place, same sentiments.
I'm tired of the dying of the people of the state of Texas. Too many Texans are in mourning. Too many Texans have lost their lives.
We're a small community, and we'll need your prayers to get us through this.
Investigate, grieve, pray. It's a cycle on repeat with frustrating and devastating frequency.
And now we have children murdered at school. When are we going to do something? I'm tired. I'm so tired of getting up here and offering condolences to the devastated families that are out there. I'm so tired of the, I'm tired of the moments of silence. Enough.
Now, the moments of silence are for Uvalde, while so many people ask how many victims, how many shootings is enough. Noel Walker, NBC5.
Our coverage continues right after this break. Stay with us.
You're watching NBC5 News at 6.
Good evening. Our coverage of the Texas school shooting in Uvalde continues right now at 6:30. 19 children and 2 teachers died in a school shooting yesterday, and we are now seeing some of their faces tonight. Governor Greg Abbott says an 18-year-old gunman shot his grandmother in the face, and when she called police, he fled. He later crashed his pickup truck near Robb Elementary, then ran inside. And that is where he opened fire inside of a classroom. The governor says that the gunman was killed by a Border Patrol officer. And tonight, Brian Curtis is live for us in Uvalde. Brian, we know the community there, they're hurting. And tonight, they're also coming together for a vigil at 7 o'clock. What do you know? What can you share?
Yeah, that is Exactly right, Brittany. A community vigil is being planned for the families. That is tonight at 7 o'clock. It'll happen in just about 30 minutes. We will have more on that coming up on NBC5 News at 10. Joining me now is Telemundo 39's Norma Garcia. Norma, you arrived here early this morning. What have you seen in terms of reaction from the community?
Brian, I've spent most of the day on the other side of the school where the main sign is, where people are bringing the flowers. What I've seen is nothing but solidarity from this community, not just here in Uvalde, but from neighboring communities. One man in particular really caught our attention. He was very sad. He was praying by himself, praying a rosary. So we asked him why he decided to drive over an hour to come here and pray.
We all have children, and it hit home. You know, this is something that you don't see often locally where I'm from. So I had to come out and see for myself. I had to pay my respect to these children. You know, it's the last week of school for them, so I had to come out and pray.
We also saw mothers with their young children bringing flowers and praying. That has been the overall theme of throughout the day, Brian.
Yeah, Norma, this tragedy would shred any community. But this is a predominantly Hispanic community. How is it affecting people here?
Very family oriented, large families with a lot of small children. It's hurting them a lot. They're scared. Some of the children are scared to go to school. 15,000 people in this community, 80% identify themselves as Hispanic, Brian.
Yeah, I think everybody in this community has been touched somehow by this tragedy.
Absolutely. Our heart goes out to them.
Yeah, Norma, thank you very much for your insight.
Thanks,
we
Brian.
appreciate it. As we know all too well, we have been here before and we have seen and heard the calls for action. NBC5's Katie Blakey joins us now with a look at what Texas lawmakers have done in the past and what could be done next.
Yeah, Brian, we were having these same discussions just 4 years ago following the shooting at Santa Fe High School outside of Houston. In response to that, Texas Republicans and Democrats came together to work on ways to improve school safety and mental health services. But none of those reforms addressed guns.
Into the school year, May 2018, a student at Santa Fe High brought his father's gun to campus, killed 10 students, wounded 13.
We're going to be all focused on moving swiftly and strategically.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott launched a series of roundtable discussions that led to new laws focused on school security and expanding mental health services. Now, 4 years later, heartache in Uvalde.
When you see 19 children, third and fourth graders that are killed, that's really unimaginable, and you know, it's really unacceptable, and we have to do a better job.
Former Dallas ISD Police Chief Craig Miller.
It's difficult to have a round table and only have elected government officials or have people from architecture firms or have people from school technology firms that are there, but not invite the people that are there every single day working with the kids.
Most of the bills that we've pushed forward, even with broad support behind them, have not made it out of committee.
Nicole Golden with Texas Gun Sense says they were part of the talks too, and say their efforts for any type of gun reform failed, including closing background check loopholes and red flag laws which allow firearms to be seized from someone considered a threat.
These are things that most Texans support. These are reasonable measures that in other states have been successful in reducing gun deaths.
As Democratic candidate for Governor Beto O'Rourke pushed for gun reform now,
but if we continue to accept this, then it is on us. It's not just the governor's fault. It is on us. I'm not going to accept it, so I'm here. I'm calling attention to this, and I'm asking all Texans of good conscience.
Abbott's remarks today focused on strengthening mental health resources. No mention of guns. Golden believes common ground can still be reached.
I want people to know that even if they're feeling that sense of despair, we've all been there. The antidote to despair is action.
Texas Gun Sense says they will be working on their strategy to push those items for the next legislative session when lawmakers return to Austin in January. And of course, we'll be watching to see if Governor Abbott calls together another task force like he did following the Santa Fe shooting or the shooting in El Paso. Back to you, Brian.
Yeah, we definitely will be watching. Thank you, Katie. Allie Spilliards has been in Uvalde since early this morning. She's been talking with family and friends of students and staff who were in the school during the shooting. She is here now with the gut-wrenching stories of the people waiting to hear if people they know made it out of Robb Elementary alive. Allie?
Brian, nearly all day today, we have seen people gathering together, whether in their homes, at the Civic Center, or even here at the elementary school, as they all try to seek some comfort from each other, as nearly all have a connection to one of these victims.
In a small town, it seems no one is immune from the horror of a tragedy that's become one of the nation's deadliest.
What are we all supposed to do? It's just heartbroken. It's going to be really hard.
Like others who've come with balloons or flowers to this elementary school turned crime scene, Dora Floric and her family are mourning their own losses. She says both family and friends were in the school when a gunman opened fire on a 4th grade class yesterday. And now, instead of summer break, they're preparing for funerals.
You know, today, tomorrow, the day after, for weeks, for months, it's going to be hard.
For Henry Ramon,
unbelievable. It's not real. It's why here, you know.
The connection is a cousin, Irma Garcia, one of 2 4th grade teachers who died trying to protect her students.
I realized that it could happen to any one of us at any moment, any given time.
It's horrendous because I have a son, I have kids, and this doesn't happen in this town. It just doesn't happen.
Adolfo Hernandez says his nephew watched as both a classmate and teacher were shot. He believes Uvalde's small size is the same thing that will give them the resilience to figure out what comes next.
Like I said, this is a close community. I mean, we lend a shoulder to cry on. You know, I mean, offer our help however we can.
When talking with people today, I asked several what they would want people to know about this tragedy that has happened here in their community. Multiple people told me to hug your loved ones just a little tighter tonight. Brian.
Thank you, Allie. Governor Greg Abbott is asking all Texans to come together and support the families affected by this tragedy. During a news conference, he said parents had a gift stolen from them.
Some were receiving awards for perfect attendance. These kids will never attend school again.
The governor is promising to help the people of Uvalde take care of their mental and emotional health. He says the state is working with federal and local agencies to make sure they have access they need for as long as they need it. President Biden says he is sick and tired of all the tragedy and trauma people have endured. He is ready to find common ground on gun control legislation.
The idea that an 18-year-old can walk into a store and buy weapons of war designed and marketed to kill is, I think, just wrong. It just violates common sense.
The president says he and the First Lady will be traveling to Uvalde in the coming days to meet with families. As frustration grows, Americans are looking to Congress for answers. A Congress that is really divided on how to move forward on gun policy or the reasons behind mass shootings. Political reporter Julie Fine joins us now with more on that. Julie?
Well, Brian, you just talked about compromise. I spoke to Congressman Colin Allred and Congressman Roger Williams today. They both believe they should look for common ground where there can be discussion between the parties. But their ideas on what to do next are very different. Now, Allred believes there should be an assault weapons ban, but knows that's not the starting point when it comes to compromise. He thinks raising the age that someone can buy an assault-style weapon should be considered. He favors strengthening background checks.
What happened in Uvalde was an 18-year-old who can't buy a beer, being able to walk into a gun store and buy 2 AR-15s and hundreds of rounds of ammunition without any flags being raised, without anyone saying this is not, nothing illegal happened in that transaction. That's obviously a failure of our policies.
Congressman Roger Williams wants to see a $1.2 billion bill passed that provides grants for school safety, but doesn't favor any changes in gun policy and raise concerns about mental health and changes within families. My political partner, Gromer Jeffers from the Dallas Morning News, asked Congressman Roger Williams why someone needs a semi-automatic or assault-style weapon.
Well, those are always good questions. I mean, I can't tell you that, but the fact of the matter is, this thing is not caused by what is caused is by the wrong people having weapons. And it gets back to what we just talked about. It gets back to mental health, family unit, et cetera.
So while many are calling for change, Brian, getting there a different issue. There is willingness from both representatives we talked to today for debate and discussion, though, to try to find those common areas. Brian?
Yeah, we'll see if they can get anything done this time. Thank you, Julie. Earlier today, President Joe Biden announced that he and the First Lady will travel to Texas, but as we mentioned, he did not say when, but we will, of course, continue to follow the latest developments. For now, Brittany, I will send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Brian, we will check in with you and have updates tonight at 10. Thank you so much. Now we know there's pretty much no doubt that parents across North Texas are having to field some tough questions from their own children about the shooting. Experts at Cook Children's Hospital say that the best course of action here is to have those age-appropriate conversations with your children, because that's what lets them know that it's okay to talk about their concerns and their fears.
Be willing to start that conversation, even if they don't. Your child needs to know that you want to know how they are, how the child is coping, that you care about them.
And some simple takeaways that might help parents here: try to limit your child's exposure to news. Also keep their routines at home. That can help alleviate their anxiety. Now, if you would like to help, the city of Uvalde is accepting donations for the medical expenses of the families of yesterday's tragedy. So you can send a check to the city of Uvalde. That address here right on your screen, P.O. Box 799, Uvalde, Texas, and the zip code is 78802. We'll be right back. Richardson police arrested a high school student after they got a call about a man holding what looked like a rifle. Police say that suspect was a student at Berkner High School. They found the student on campus, but no weapons. Officers found what looked like a pistol and a replica rifle inside of a car used by the student. He was arrested and charged. And that comes just one day after the mass shooting at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. Residents say that Uvalde is a small, tight-knit community, and while processing this tragedy, it's just begun. NBC's Wendy Woolfolk is in Uvalde with the latest. Wendy?
One day after the shooting at Robb Elementary, shock overwhelmed by grief.
It's a nightmare. It's something that you would never think that happens in our beautiful small community.
The death toll, 21 people, 19 children, and 2 teachers.
As people were informed that their child had deceased, you heard uncontrollable crying, as you could imagine.
The gunman identified as 18-year-old Uvalde resident Salvador Ramos.
The shooter was able to make entry into a classroom, barricaded himself inside that classroom, and again just began shooting numerous children and teachers that were in that classroom, having no regard for human life.
The Texas governor said he posted his plans on Facebook.
The first post was to the point of, he said, "I'm going to shoot my grandmother." The second post was, "I shot my grandmother." The third post, maybe less than 15 minutes before arriving at the school, was, "I'm going to shoot an elementary school."
During the governor's press conference, his Democratic opponent, Beto O'Rourke, spoke up.
This is totally predictable when you... Sir, you're out of line.
Growing frustration after this latest mass shooting. But for this small Texas community, life forever changed.
We need to have a voice. We need to speak. Something has to be done. This cannot happen again.
And the people want to be heard. Wendy Woolfolk, NBC News, Uvalde, Texas.
And a famous Texan is also calling for action after yesterday's deadly shooting. Actor Matthew McConaughey is from Uvalde, and he shared a lengthy statement on his social media saying in part, quote, "We have to rearrange our values and find a common ground above this devastating American reality that has tragically become our children's issue. We must do better." We're now just a few minutes away from a community-wide vigil that is set to begin in Uvalde. But before we leave you, we do want to bring you the latest from South Texas. We do know 6 people shot in yesterday's rampage remain hospitalized in San Antonio. One of them is in critical condition. And as for the victims, all of the 19 families of the children shot in that 4th grade classroom, they all know about their child's tragic death. Police say the gunman barricaded himself inside of the class for about an hour before police and Border Patrol agents stormed in while exchanging gunfire before killing him. One of the 2 teachers who died in the attack, she was found trying to shield children from the spray of bullets. The massive investigation continues, but right now it is not clear why the gunman attacked. His family says they're shocked and they never saw it coming. Again, the city of Uvalde is gathering tonight to remember the lives lost in yesterday's shooting. That vigil is set to begin in just minutes, and Brian Curtis, along with our team in Uvalde, they will bring you full coverage tonight at 10.